Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broadening our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Michael.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I liked that hello.
Really?
Hello.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
That was my, that was like a Masterpiece Theater hello or something.
Hello there. Hello. Welcome, listeners.
It's very good.
Thank you.
But I do have a question.
Okay.
Let me see your fingers. Are they limber? Are they happy?
God damn it. It's 9:30 in the morning, you asshole.
I had a lot of coffee.
So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 5,000 fingers of Dr. T.
You're way too excited for this.
I am excited for this, and I can't believe you guys aren't. This is going to be the lowest seen, most hated episode we've done so far, I think.
I guess I'll have to find a musical group to share it in or something.
I'm sure they're out there.
This actually has a following.
Of course it does.
It has a pretty decent following.
That's one of the things we're going to talk about.
Sven Gulli showed it a couple of years ago.
Oh.
And
Nice.
and people were like, ooh, 5,000 fingers of Dr. T. And the rest of the world's like, the fuck?
Yeah, this is the very definition of a cult film, which I don't think we've really touched on that much yet.
I mean, no.
That's a hard term to pin down, though, too.
Right. But I have my own definition of that.
And we will get into all of that and more, but first, like always, we're going to warm up with a bit of what we've been watching.
Cool.
Yeah, someone else go first.
You go first this time, Dustin. You never go first.
Oh, okay. I've noticed that when I write the notes. I always like, what order are our names in? And mine's at the bottom, of course. So, there's a lot of things I could talk about. I don't want to repeat the one time where I rattled off like 500 movies.
Yes, you do.
I mean, I kind of do.
I don't want to do it, but I will.
But what I do want to talk about is a little bit of anime, because the final Evangelion movie came out yesterday to Amazon Prime. First time you can watch it outside of Japan.
Oh, look, it's right there on top of my IMDb when I was searching
nice,
for
yeah.
my movie.
Good, they're promoting it well. But this is Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time.
I'm confused already.
Right, so most people are, if you know anime, you're going to be vaguely familiar with Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's one of the most popular anime ever.
I've even heard of it. It's giant robots, right?
Right, yep.
Okay.
It gets very trippy, very psychological, very out there. And it was roughly like, I want to say 2007, the original creator came back and they were like, we're going to do these new films. It's kind of going to be like a recut of the plot. It's going to remix what was before, but also bring in some like new story ideas. And yeah, wow, it's taken them like years and years, because just this year they've released the final one.
They were just waiting for the people who got mad about it to die off.
Probably, yeah.
And then they're like, okay, those people are dead. We can make a new one.
And I'm happy to say I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I don't want to go deep in the plot because it is the fourth film in a series of 4, so a lot of context is going to be completely lost on people. They are all on Amazon Prime now, so if you want to check it out, it's easy to go back to the first one and just get right in there.
I think what Dustin's trying to say is that I don't have to pay extra for them.
Right.
If I'd like to.
They're free with Prime.
If I would like to watch them, I don't have to pay more.
But yeah, it was amazingly told story, great animation, huge like spectacle fight scenes with the mechs and stuff. I really don't want to spoil too much about the plot, but yeah, I loved it. It was a very satisfying conclusion to everything. I do think, kind of like the original Evangelion, it'll be an ending that'll piss a lot of people off. It won't be like what they wanted out of this.
Is this where, like...
Is it their rise with Skywalker? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say it's that far out there.
Perhaps Last Jedi. Maybe that's a better analogy.
It's very typical of the director, Hideki Anno. He always kind of does these like reaches for like a very weird direction that's like usually not the satisfying thing you want it to be, but... There's a lot of like metaphor and significance in the ending.
Well, sometimes you don't know what you want until you get it, so, you know.
True.
And sometimes you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Thank you, Mick.
What's the pacing like on Evangelion? Like, I've always wanted to watch it, but I was worried that it's, like, because I don't do well with it slow, because I'm American, and I need...
So you didn't like it when it was too fast with Promare.
I need it just right. I need the Goldilocks of anime.
I think the films are pretty well paced. There are a lot of slower segments, but I feel like they earn it with like a lot of action, and then they'll kind of slow down for a good chunk of time.
Okay.
This film might be tough because it's almost 3 hours long, And there's a good like whole chapter that's about a full hour where they really super slow down and do a bunch of character building.
Okay.
So
He doesn't like that.
I don't like character building.
I think you should try the first one. It is very well paced, and it's mostly just like a recreation of parts of the show.
Okay.
Because the kind of the way they framed it was like the first film, it's like, oh, this is just going to be like a straight, like we reanimated it better remake. And then in the second film, they kind of like diverge from the line. And with every subsequent film, they've drifted further from the original plot.
Okay. I'll give it a shot. It's one of those that's like iconic amongst
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that one for a while.
anime, so I feel like if I'm delving into the world of Gundam, I should also...
It's another stop you should hit, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, so that's me.
Okay. I'll go.
Yeah, you go.
Okay, it's one I've been meaning to check out for a long time, and it's been on Netflix for a while, but I just kind of missed it. 2019, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, Synchronic.
I really want to see this.
So, basic premise, I'll give you the IMDb synopsis. Two New Orleans paramedics' lives are ripped apart after they encounter a series of horrific deaths linked to a designer drug with bizarre otherworldly effects. Starring Anthony Mackie of Marvel fame,
Love him.
like Falcon and stuff. He's done a shit ton of other stuff too, but it's mostly for Falcon. And then Jamie Dornan, who people might know from the 50 Shades of Grey stuff, which I haven't watched. But he's actually super cool in this movie. I'll plug this movie because a lot of people haven't seen it. The Siege of Jadoville, I think is what it's called. It's on Netflix. He was apparently in Robin Hood. That was a shitty movie. Mostly for 50 Shades of Grey is what he's in, but there's like the Siege of Shadowville is on Netflix. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jamie Dornan's in
Like
that.
a war movie? Or?
Yeah, it's that one's based on like a what's the word for a platoon? Mm-hmm. Yes, a platoon of soldiers that are like have to hold down a South African town.
Oh, cool. Those are always fun.
Yeah, it's kind of your typical like 300 type style story, but it's super cool. I actually really endorse that one. But anyway,
So this is my burning question, and you don't have to spoil anything. I just want to know. Does Synchronic link up at all with The Endless and Resolution?
so I realized I hadn't seen The Endless.
What are you doing with your life?
I know, and
It's okay. I haven't watched it either.
What the fuck?
Dude, do you know how many movies there are to watch?
hundreds, literally hundreds.
You haven't seen Tenet yet. Shut the fuck up.
I started Tenet the other night.
Nice.
So I know The Endless is kind of Lovecraftian, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the basic premise here of Synchronic is that these paramedics come across this, what they think are just junkies that have OD'd on something, but like one of them has a fucking sword wound in his chest, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, they're like, this is something that you will only see in New Orleans, like paramedics now seeing a junkie sword fight. Like, okay, of course.
They just happened upon Highlander. That's it. That's
Yeah,
all.
exactly. But essentially what Synchronic does is it kind of like transports people throughout time, depending on your position currently. So like if you're in one spot, it will transport you through somewhere in time. And there somehow becomes the ability to bring things back through time. The way they kind of get around this like scientifically is that if this drug was designed for adults and it was supposed to just make you kind of trip out, but it fucks with the pineal gland, which, as we know from Beyond, you don't fuck with the pineal gland. It just like shoots out of their fucking forehead. But because teens are starting to take it, their pineal gland isn't calcified yet, and so now they're like able to trip through time.
That's a neat premise. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's real ethereal, real cerebral kind of a thing.
And you know, The Endless has to do with time loops, so there is a bit of like thematic connection there.
I think so. From what I read about Endless, I think
I'll have to deep dive into it then.
I think they're in the same realm. There's like some stuff you have to turn your brain off for a little bit for Synchronic, because if you really start digging deep into it, you're like, wait.
Well, it's that any time travel type
Yeah,
thing.
any
you
time
always
travel.
have to just suspend disbelief. As long as they sell it okay, you have to turn off your brain a little.
The emotion and tone is here for this one. So I think that's what sold it for me. Was it's
Nice.
it's a bleak tone. It's also kind of choppy as to in terms of like how the movie is paced and to like what time period am I watching right now. It kind of jumps back and forth to where it confuses you as a viewer to where you're almost in the same situation as the paramedics of like, or your main character, which is Anthony Mackie. You're almost in his mode of like, fuck, time is now starting to be time's a flat circle kind of thing.
Nice. That's what you want out of your. You want your audience confused. That's great.
But it works.
Right.
It really did work for Synchronic. I definitely would check it out. It's for some reason got a really shitty IMDb score.
Don't trust them.
It's kind of one of those things though that you're either into that sort of thing or you're not. If you want to kind of be challenged a little bit and have your brain flip around and like, okay, this is an interesting prospect, but I like that. I've always liked the prospect of like the time isn't linear. We just view it as linear.
Right.
But time, and especially if you get into quantum physics and like space travel and stuff, time really isn't linear. It's really just based on our gravitational pull. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's
To bring it back up again, Slaughterhouse
physics
5.
exposure.
Yeah.
Gets into that.
Well, but when you think of, I think what some people had trouble with in the Christopher Nolan movie Interstellar was was wrapping their head around like when they went to a different planet that had a different
the time dilation.
Yeah. And people were like, I just don't understand that. And I'm like,
Gravity, basically.
Yeah, it's basically our theory of time here is locked to our gravitational pull. So if we were on a different planet, time would exist differently. But yeah,
which is a really neat aspect. I like that movie, by the way.
yeah, I think it's a great movie. But yeah, the one we're talking about though, Synchronic.
Oh, is that the one we're talking about? Okay.
We just referenced two other movies. Like, sure, go check those out too. No, I think it's definitely worth watching. Dustin, I think you would like it a lot.
Nice. I'll have to get to it soon.
Jason, I think you'd like it too.
Cool.
It's tone-wise, really good tone.
Well, I have to watch The Endless first, apparently.
Well, I haven't, and I enjoyed Synchronic. So, but it's on Netflix, so easy to check out.
I think they're good as filmmakers because I've seen everything they've done but Synchronic, and it's all been great.
I really wanted to watch The Endless because it got a lot of buzz in the horror community and like the sci-fi community because people are like, this is super Lovecraftian, but that's also a term that people like to throw on anything.
Future episode. What is Lovecraftian?
That would be a good topic.
Yeah.
Probably
It's not Cthulhu Mansion, I'll tell you that.
It's probably a good quick cut episode.
Yeah.
No, but it's like one of those things. If you deal with anything otherworldly or slightly cosmic, people are like, "Oh, it's Lovecraftian."
Right.
And other authors have done that.
Not necessarily. Yeah.
Kind of like
not
stuff
just-
being Lynchian, right, Jason?
Exactly. Just because it's weird doesn't mean it's Lynchian.
Now Dustin's triggered, so the rest of the episode is...
All right, well, let me
Jason,
talk about my
what'd you watch?
crappy movie.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Skull, The Mask.
Oh, you finally watched it.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Why?
Fucking hate that movie.
I didn't like it either.
Good.
Aw.
It was disappointing.
It looked so good in the trailer.
It did look great in the trailer, and it has some merits. Like, it's obviously low budget,
Yeah.
but that sort of helps for the overall tone because it has kind of this grungy, dingy sort of tone. And the monster is kind of cool. There's some cool effects. He's got like all these like intestines, swarming throughout his body and
The
stuff.
stop
like
motion's cool.
Stop motion's cool, but it's just the story just wasn't good.
You know, one of my biggest issues with that movie was the editing.
Editing was bad.
I'm not a filmmaker, and I've never made a film, so I'm not going to sit here and tell people, like, this is what you should do. But it becomes very obvious your budget if you don't edit right.
Right. And I was wondering if editing was part of the problem that I had, because there's like a couple of scenes, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, so the story is basically about this cop, and she's trying to catch this, supernaturally endowed killer and stuff. That sounds naughty.
I was like, supernaturally endowed.
They should have made that movie.
All right. The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T is supernaturally endowed.
But anyway, so like she shoots the guy and he runs off and she chases him. But it's like as soon as he's off camera, she stops. He just sort of looks in the direction he ran. And he's like right there and he's wounded. And this wasn't even the supernatural guy. This was like a mortal guy she shot.
Right.
She should have been able to catch him. But she just stops. She's like 5 feet away and just stops.
Well, I mean, he's off camera. He's off screen.
Right, he's gone. It's like a video game where it's like, oh, I don't see him
Either
anymore.
that or she has no object permanence, and she's like completely missed that part of development.
She's a really shitty cop.
You play peekaboo with her, and she's like, God damn it, they're gone!
Blows her mind. Stuff like that. I can't endorse this one, unfortunately.
Aw.
It was billed as, like, they really hardcore sold the gore effects.
Yeah.
And they were like, really, this is a splatter film, like 80s, all practical effects. Yes, they were.
There was some CG augmentation here and there, but yeah, there was a lot of good practical stuff.
But it was the way they fucking cut it. Like, everything was cut to where...
Yeah.
It was like nothing flowed together.
It's very
and it was
choppy.
like, hold on, let's do a cut. Insert our shot of a practical effect that was clearly not shot on the same location.
Yeah.
Close up on it, edit in, edit back out. And you're like, God damn it, man. Like,
Yeah.
Sounds like some Winter Beast style editing.
Oh boy. I still need to see this Winter Beast.
I kind of want to see it just for Dustin's excitement for it.
So that's my movie.
I was
Skull.
afraid you were going to be like, I loved the skull, and I'm going to have to sit here and be like, you're fucking stupid.
Well, that does make me sad because I remember when we watched the trailer and I was like, dude,
Yeah, I was
this
excited.
looks amazing.
Yeah. It was a cool trailer.
Yeah.
Oh well, sad to report.
Okay.
At least somebody's out there doing practical gore effects, though.
And it's cool to see something from Brazil, you know, because you get the whole different cultural aspect and stuff.
It does have a following. A lot of people did like it.
Yeah.
So,
You know, good for them. I'm glad they liked it.
yeah, that's fine.
It's okay to be wrong.
All right. So, Jason, your film quotation. Film.
Oh, wow. Are we starting with that?
No. We'll just go with your movie.
Okay. The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. It's from 1953. I knew this one would be a risky pick.
I don't think it was risky. I mean, this is one of those movies that I think you should see. I'm not going to say you'll like it, but I think it's definitely, if you like old Hollywood.
Yes, which you should.
So to get some big stuff out of the way, it's directed by Roy Rowland.
Yes.
Kind of the super notable thing to talk about it is that there's writing credits from Dr. Seuss.
Yep. He worked on the screenplay and did the lyrics for the songs.
That's very noticeable.
And the set design is obviously influenced by their artwork.
Yeah, I did a little digging, and he apparently was on set for a lot of it and kind of like helped direct.
He was very hands-on, yeah.
Oh, would you say he's hands-on? Damn it, that didn't work.
What the hell was that?
I'm looking at the Happy Fingers thing, and we'll post this for you guys. Images.
You know, this is a
from
podcast, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't know. We'll post an image for this because it's you kind of need to see it to get it. But there's like the kid's wearing like a Mickey Mouse type hat, but instead of the ears, it's a giant golden hand. That's like
It's the official Terwilliker beanie.
yeah.
Oh, there it goes. I got excited about the beanie.
That wasn't Jason's hand that hit that, by the way.
So I guess top level, do you want to give us a synopsis of this film first before
Yes.
we go any further?
So basically, it is about this young boy who's learning the piano, who doesn't want to learn the piano. He's being instructed by Doctor Terwilliker, played by the great, underutilized Hans Conried.
He was fucking awesome.
He's amazing. He is so good. He should have been so much bigger than he was. He should have been supernaturally endowed, but he wasn't. So this kid doesn't want to learn. His mom comes out and says, keep practicing. So he has this daydream. He falls asleep because it's boring. And then his daydream involves him being captured by Dr. T, who plans on capturing 500 other little boys to have 5,000 fingers to play this big, huge piano he made. And it's the opening of the Terwilliker Institute, and it's a big deal to him. And basically, it's all about him trying to escape the institute, trying to save his mom, who's been hypnotized by Dr. T, and the plumber, I can't pronounce his name, Zabalowski. He's trying to hook him up with his mom. And it is a family film. It is a musical. It is a fantasy. And I kind of love it.
So let's talk about that genre first, because this is the first time we've ever
Yes.
talked about a musical before.
Yes. I think everyone is pretty familiar with what a musical is.
Right.
It's a movie where people will burst into song
Yeah, we don't need to go
spontaneously.
deep into that, but
There's probably some argument, though, as to what would constitute a musical.
Okay.
So I've got the official definition here.
The official definition.
Look at that. I didn't even know that you'd planned that, and I segued that perfectly, didn't I?
So it's a film genre in which songs by the characters are interwoven into the narrative, sometimes accompanied by dancing. These songs usually advance the plot or develop the film's characters, but in some cases they may merely serve as breaks in the storyline or elaborate cutaway production numbers.
There
And
you go.
then, of course, like a lot of genre of film, this when you trace it back, it goes back to theater and the stage. Because that's, I think, when a lot of people think of musicals, you're going to think of, like, theater productions.
Broadway,
Sure.
stuff
Right.
like that, yeah.
And so another thing to note is that as it developed from the stage into film, the biggest difference is that in film you're going to have lavish background scenery, and usually they'll develop locations that would be impractical to show in a theater.
The advantages of film.
Also, musical films characteristically contain elements that will remind you of the theater. Performers will often treat their songs and dance numbers as if there is a live audience watching. They'll be looking directly at the camera as they're staring out into the crowd that's there.
Yep.
So in a sense, the viewer becomes the diegetic audience as if they were there in the theater right with them. But the camera is sort of our interlay between that.
Right.
Do you guys know what the first musical ever was?
Like the jazz singer, basically?
It is,
I was
correct.
going to say
This
the
was like
jazz
the first
singer.
talkie.
Yeah. Look at this.
1929, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 27.
27.
Oh, well.
I am very proud of you guys. Yeah, it was the first to have an audio track, and it used both non-diegetic music and diegetic music, and there were only very short sequences of dialogue.
Right.
I've seen a little bit of it. Have you guys ever actually watched it?
I've never seen the whole thing.
I watched some of it back in college when I took the film classes and stuff like that.
And highly important at the time, of course.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one of those, like, if you're, it's like right there with the Lumiere brothers, like,
Yeah.
it's thrown into that whole intro to film course.
Sure. As it should be.
Jazz singer's always right there.
And so then to kind of just shoot us through quickly kind of the history of musical and cinema. So in the late 20s, that's when it took off, like you said, along with talkies being a thing, moving away from silent films. In the 20s, a lot of this was exemplified with the films of Busby Berkeley. He was a choreographer that was known for his distinctive and elaborate set pieces and the use of a lot of like choreographed showgirls in these big, huge productions. During the 30s, musicals of people like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers became massive, very much captivated the public. Films like Top Hat, Shall We Dance? And then, of course, in 39, you have The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
Made a big splash as
Classic.
Which we've just found out the other day that some of our best friends haven't ever seen Wizard of
How
Oz.
have you not seen Wizard of Oz?
We were in the chat thread when he was like, maybe I should finally watch Wizard of Oz. And we're like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean finally watch Wizard
Even
of
if
Oz?
you don't go looking for it, how, like a rerun on TV or something. Like,
How have you not been exposed to
I
it?
agree.
I think your parents have failed if you have not seen Wizard of Oz as a child.
I grew up on it. I might have said this before. Like, sorry to interrupt your break.
No, that's good.
I spent a lot of time with my aunt when I was growing up because my mom worked, and so my aunt stayed and she babysat me because she had a small child as well. So it was me and my cousin a lot, and my aunt was super into sci-fi, and so like my love of sci-fi came from my aunt. Cool. And when she passed away very young, so like I have a lot of sentiment towards stuff that I watched with her. And we probably watched Wizard of Oz once a week.
nice.
Like, it just became, that's what we did.
Nice.
Like, we usually watch Star Wars and Wizard of Oz.
See, I watched Beetlejuice once a week with my grandma.
Oh, nice.
That probably explains a lot about me.
I think it does.
Beetlejuice is awesome.
But yeah, so Wizard of Oz was groundbreaking because it experimented with stuff like Technicolor. So even as musicals are developing, they're kind of pulling along with the development of film over the years. The 40s and the 50s, there were a lot of musicals from MGM that kind of made a big splash. You had stuff like 55, you had Oklahoma, 56, The King and I. A lot of these films, their sort of standout thing is that they relied on the star power of the actors that were involved to really kind of push and sell them.
Even movies like, especially in the 30s and 40s, that weren't technically musicals would have musical numbers, like Marx Brothers and stuff like that. It's kind of like in Indian films today, where you just have to have musical numbers. Don't matter what the genre is, they're going to break into song. Bollywood.
Which
stuff.
we won't delve into Bollywood, but that is a whole other like path you could talk about when you want to talk about musicals.
That's a whole other thing.
Maybe we'll do a Bollywood film at some point. No?
I don't know. I had a professor in college who used to talk about how much he loved Bollywood, and he was very white male. It was like very strange that he loved Bollywood so much. But
it could be pretty kooky and pretty crazy. So,
well, I actually got he gave an extra credit portion on a test, and it was about this gritty Bollywood movie that I happened to know about, and I was literally the only person in the class who got this answer right. And he stopped in class and he was like, "Why do you know this movie?" I was like, "It's on Netflix. I watched it one day."
Nice.
He was like, "Okay."
Nice.
I was proud of myself for that.
So in the 60s, a lot of stage musicals would be transferred to film and went on to have like big box office successes. You had stuff like West Side Story in 61, My Fair Lady,
Sound of Music.
Yeah. Mary Poppins. We should probably talk about Disney in the mix of that, because a lot of their films end up being musicals, even their animated features.
Oh, and Hans Conried, the Dr. T of this, voiced Captain Hook in Peter Pan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Interesting. I didn't know that, but I can see it now that you bring it up.
You can actually see it on his face too, like
because they would oftentimes reference the
Yeah.
performance of the vocalist and draw that into the.
I could totally. I was looking up because I didn't know anything about Hans Conried, and I was like, God, he's like, you're just drawn to him in 5,000 Fingers. It's just like, dude, this guy is authentic, like old Hollywood greatness. And so I looked him up, and I was like, oh fuck, he even looks like Captain Hook. Like you could totally see him in a stage performance of Peter Pan.
Yep.
Playing Captain Hook.
Get to the 70s, Jason's favorite era.
Woohoo.
We know that there's that focus on gritty realism that kind of came into things, but the sort of classic Hollywood musical was still thriving. You had stuff like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in 71, Fiddler on the Roof, Cabaret, Pete's Dragon. And again, it was that same thing where even against sort of the trend of the era, they were still kind of like sticking to that stage show aspect that's always pulled along with musicals.
True.
Talking about the 80s and the 90s, a lot of your musicals there that were big, that's where you get into like the domination of Disney and like their animated films with stuff like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, on and on. And then talking about sort of the 21st century and on, there's been a rise of like more darker musicals, or musicals that kind of take like a biopic angle or remakes of classics. You've got stuff like Moulin Rouge, Chicago.
A lot of Broadway stuff too.
Les Mis.
A lot of Broadway stuff that's been not so easily transformed onto screen.
That horrible Phantom of the Opera movie that should have been so much better.
It has moments.
And then sort of the other angle of this, I would say, is the cult musical. And this is going to branch us into talking about your thing about cult films.
Sure. Like Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yeah, that's sort of the first one that would come to my mind if you're going to talk about a cult musical, where it's sort of outside of the mainstream of like the Hollywood engine and system, and yet it has this huge following that everybody, they love this film so much.
Rightly so.
So, Jason, would you say that 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T is your favorite cult musical?
Ooh.
Let's talk about that. What is your favorite cult musical?
Oh, man. See, when you're talking about cult musical... See, let's talk about my definition of cult.
Okay,
what I think of
let's
as
start
cult.
there.
Okay.
And I think Dr. T is the perfect cult film because, to me, I don't think you can make a movie for a cult. Like if you're making a cult movie, you're making outsider art. You're trying to appeal to people who don't really like the mainstream.
Right.
And while those can work, to me, a cult film is something that was kind of forgotten. Like Dr. T was meant to be a mainstream success.
Sure.
It adheres strictly to 1950s formula.
It's got the fucking kid from Lassie in it.
Right.
So it's supposed to be.
Yeah. But it just flopped. It was a critical failure. It didn't make any money. They did a preview of it and cut out 9 musical numbers and reshot the very beginning.
Wow.
It was that disastrous to preview screening. And that version's lost. No one can find that one, unfortunately. The songs are retained, but it was on the soundtrack that was released. but no one's ever seen that preview version since
And I think
then.
you definitely notice it because when I was watching it early on, I was like, okay, it's a musical. And then there's like a long segment with no songs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, is this actually a musical?
There should have been a song or two in there. Right, you can tell.
I did
You can
notice
tell.
that. It felt like this, and a couple that, we'll get into it, but like some of the songs I really, really liked.
Oh, yeah, there's some very catchy songs. They've been stuck in my head.
I
since
really
I
liked
watched it.
some of them, but then there are others I was like, where's the rest of the music? Like, there's no... It didn't always fit my definition of a musical.
Right.
So I was confused at some points, but that makes sense that a bunch of it was cut.
So years later, it's rediscovered, pretty much like in the 90s, early 2000s. People start paying more attention to it. It gets critically reevaluated, starts gaining a cult following. That's a cult movie to me, you know.
So I think the typical definition a lot of people would use is it's a film that has sort of been ostracized or forgotten in the mainstream, but it has sort of this underground following of devoted fans.
Correct.
As much as we like to rip on him for some of his stuff, I was actually listening to an interview with Kevin Smith talking about who, in my opinion, was very much a cult film director. Because his films, like when Clerks came out, Clerks was kind of shot down at the film festivals, and people were like, this is stupid. I don't get it. Then it kind of got this underground following because people were like, oh, no, this is kind of this is me. This is like me with my friends talking about
It's
movies.
his only good movie, so we should celebrate it.
Well, and so that's what... Well, then he starts talking about when he made Mallrats, because of the cult following of Clerks, somebody gave him money and was like, oh, he's a good director. Let's give him money to make something else. So he makes Mallrats. Mallrats comes out and fucking bombs at the box office. Just tanks. I think it screened like one weekend, and it lost money.
Yeah.
I actually quite like Mallrats.
I do too. I think it's got its moments.
It's parts.
But then, so Kevin Smith thinks he's done, like as a director. But then Mallrats hits VHS, and people start watching it, and it like gets this following of like, oh, we actually really like this.
Right. Same thing with Austin Powers, the first one. That was a huge flop. And
But
it
then
gets
people
released.
find it,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, I guess in our era, the term cult is probably like those VHS things that you go and pick up off the shelf, and then you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
And
they used
then
to be
you're
called sleepers.
I think I've still seeing people call them that at times.
That term's not used very often anymore.
But no, I think of like, in that sense, like the way a movie, like when you talk about Kevin Smith, you talk about Mallrats.
Right.
But was a critical flop, horrible flop. So I think in a lot of ways, what we now consider to be critical achievements were flops to begin with. So, but then you kind of run into the problem with, okay, are cult filmmakers starting to make films for the cult?
Right. It's one of those things, I think it's hard to say, like, I'm a director and I am going to set out to make a cult film.
Right. I don't think any
You can't do
director
that.
really
You can't
sets
do that.
out...
The people, the audience has to decide if it's a cult film.
Yeah.
The cult has to embrace it to make it a cult film. It's like intentional schlock. It's like Sharknado. You can't make intentional camp.
Right.
You know, it has to come from a place of
But
honesty.
it sells, man.
Well,
Those
yeah.
movies keep sci-fi afloat. I don't know why.
The channel, is that what you're talking about, or the genre?
Oh, God, no. The channel, SYFY, sci-fi.
Okay.
But no, that shit keeps them afloat, man. Like, they released their numbers for those, and the amount of people who watch that, I'm like, good God.
Whatever.
Okay.
It's okay, we're getting the Chucky TV series. It's all going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
I'll forgive it
That's
all.
what sucks, and you get pissed off.
Bro, Mancini's on it, man.
Dustin just got hurt.
He did.
All right, Jason, what's your favorite cult musical?
Oh, God. Okay. There's two choices I have. I think I know what your choice is going to be, so I won't take that one. I have to go with Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay, that's fair.
Which I would consider a cult film because it was an adaptation of an off Broadway production, so it was never going to find a huge audience, I think. But I mean, it really was a big flop when it came out. And
you can totally see that being a big flop.
And it really approaches a lot of themes and concepts at the time that were kind of... I don't think a lot of people were ready to talk about those ideas.
It's very subversive.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's got great songs. It's a great movie. Everyone's seen it.
That's
if you haven't
almost
seen it,
leading
you
me
need to watch it.
into another thought. Because when you said it's very subversive, mine is super subversive too. So mine is Hedwig and the Angry Inch. which
I've never seen.
I haven't seen it either.
honestly I should probably. I don't know. I should bring it at some point, whether or not we cover it for the podcast. I think you guys should watch it.
Sure, yeah.
cool.
I always meant to. Just never got around to it.
But now it makes me wonder, like, when we talk about cult films, are cult films really exploring themes of kind of like not mainstream themes? Are they themes that mainstream doesn't particularly want to talk about? And so Hedwig and the Angry Inch deals with a sex change operation.
Yeah, I think you're onto something.
Oh, I
That
think
got
when you talk
botched.
about cult films, part of the reason they do fail mainstream-wise is because they're hitting these beats that like a regular critic's going to look at and be like, what is this weirdness? You know?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know.
I mean, well, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch is an adaptation of a Broadway show, which would fit Broadway because the tone of Hedwig and the Angry Inch is weird, but Broadway acceptable. You know, like you can kind of buy it.
Right.
But like as a film, I don't think many mainstream audiences were like, "What the fuck is this?"
Right.
Like one of the songs says, "Like my sex change operation got botched," you know. And his whole thing about the Angry Inch is that it's 6 inches forward and 5 inches back, and his sex change operation was botched, so he's now left with an angry inch.
And of course, like something like this is more acceptable to talk about these days. But this was what, late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, I think 90s. I think the 2000s. I think is when Hedwig and the Angry Inch, the
was it? I thought it was-
film. I'll pull it up. I think it's 2000.
Don't try to find out. It'll take too long. There's no way to know.
We go ahead with Dustin's, and then I
Okay.
can.
So we'll see how in sync I am with Jason on this. My pick will be Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Classic.
Oh, God, it's
That
so good.
That's my close second.
It's just the classic Faustian tale, but adapted into this story of an aspiring musician that gets his life crushed and seeks revenge against the evil record producer that made
Brian
him,
De Palma.
made him into the monster he is.
You know,
Have you seen that one?
I haven't, but we watched the
God.
trailer for it one night, all sitting around together, and I was like, "The fuck!"
Dude, it's so fun. Not all the songs land for me, which is why it's not my top. But the ones that do are really good. Everything's written by Paul Williams.
Yeah.
What's his name right now?
Which he plays the evil
Yeah,
record
he
producer.
plays. Yeah, he's great. He's great in it.
I want to see it. Once I saw the trailer for it, I was
It's got
like,
Jessica
"Oh,
Harper in it, who's actually a really good singer.
She's a great singer.
I don't know about her dancing, but her singing's great.
well, you know, you can't all be Ewan McGregor
Right.
and be a triple threat."
Right. But it's super stylish. Oh, and Beef, the character of Beef.
Beef.
There's so much
And then,
homoeroticism.
funny
here.
connection, like the first film we almost did for this podcast was Legend of the Stardust Brothers, which is a Japanese musical, and
Yeah.
it is based heavily on the concepts of Phantom of the Paradise.
I wondered if that was going to be your choice.
because they even call that out in the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered if that was going to be your choice for this one because
It's close. It's up there. I do
you
love
had us
that
watch
film.
that one.
Yeah.
So, that brings us back to Dr. T.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Oh, you
We
do?
just
Okay.
Leave the broad topic of musicals. So,
Sure.
That's talking about cult musicals. What is your favorite sort of big Hollywood production musical?
Oh. Ooh. Yeah.
There's a lot to choose from.
I think it has to be Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a safe choice.
It's a safe choice, but it's there's a reason why it's iconic.
It is,
There's
yeah,
a reason why
definitely.
it still culturally, resonates. It's just perfect. It's just a perfect movie. You don't forget the songs. You don't forget the characters. It's gorgeous. Yeah, that would be my number one pick.
Nice.
It really is. Dustin, what's yours?
Okay, so I think this would still count as like a big Hollywood production. I don't know. You guys can correct me. I've got to back up. I would go with Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I mean that's
That was a
pretty
major
Hollywood.
studio production,
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally.
Like Rick Moranis is a national treasure. I wish he was still in film, still doing stuff.
Oh, he's coming back, man.
I hope so.
He is. He's doing the new Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
But that's one where I like. I love
Grumpy old bastard.
I am a grumpy old bastard.
But that's one where like I just love every song. I love that style it's using of like kind of the 50s-ish rock.
Oh yeah. I have a story for this one. We watched it for my family on VHS when it came out. I knew a little bit about it, but the rest of my family didn't. So we're watching it, and then they start breaking into song, and my sister's like, "Are they going to sing the whole way through this movie?" It's like, yes, it's a musical.
That's fair.
All right, Michael, what do you got?
Mine's Singing in the Rain.
That's another classic.
Yeah, that one's one that I mean, I sing most of the songs from that. I love musicals. Like, I love Broadway. I love musicals. I regularly sing Les Mis to my son, and he's like staring at me because he's 4 months old and is like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" So that's kind of, to me, and that film is meta Hollywood anyway. Mm-hmm. But God, I just love that movie so much. Mm-hmm. Like Donald O'Connor, man, the dance sequence of Make 'Em Laugh. Mm-hmm. Like if you've never seen Singing in the Rain and you don't want to watch the whole thing, you've probably seen the Singing in the Rain.
Sure.
Scene.
That's been iconic and referenced so many times.
Yeah, you've probably seen that. He had the flu while shooting that anyway, by the way, which is even cooler. But there is a scene, if you just want to YouTube it, just Donald O'Connor's Make 'Em Laugh is one of the greatest dance productions to me ever put on film. The scenery flips, like he walks on walls, walks really on ceilings, like, and all of this is so practical. I don't know if it was one take or not. But it could have been. But just YouTube that and watch it and see, like,
I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, back in the day, there's no CGI. There's barely any opticals yet. You know?
Every time I watch it, I'm just like, the performance ability of him as an actor and a dancer and a singer is just mind-blowing of how good that is. And then you've also got Carrie Fisher's mom in there, too. So
nice.
You know.
Well, speaking of, like, the lack of CG and just production design, to get us back to Dr. T, I really appreciated that when it got into, like, his dreamscape, and it's this weird, like, phantasmagoric Seussian nightmare world with, like, weird angles and stuff. They just built the fucking set, man. They're like, whatever, let's just build this giant place.
Absolutely.
That was awesome.
It's a great set.
That's one of the standouts of this film for me, was the set pieces were just... You could tell it was just on this huge lot.
Yeah. It's like a more whimsical cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
That's a good... Yeah, that's kind of the imagery that I had in my head.
Because everything's like elongated and curved in weird ways that it shouldn't be.
There were times where... So there is a scene... I don't know if we really need to break this down from, like...
Well, yeah.
Scene by scene.
We should touch on points, but...
There is a scene where the kid is climbing a ladder.
Yes, and the ladder kind of curves out as it goes.
Yeah.
Did they have that fucking kid on the ladder?
Oh, no. You probably couldn't see it as well as I could on the Blu-ray. But it says an optical. There's an insert. It's like a matte painting, and then they show the real film of the kid climbing, and it's pretty obvious on blue.
You really notice the wire when he jumps off.
Yeah.
I was like,
but it looks good. So Dustin and I watched this on streaming. We'll link to a couple different places that you can stream this.
It's on Crackle?
I watched it on some other weird offbeat channel that shows movies that they get the rights for really cheap.
Yeah, and Blu-ray for this is bare bones. There's not even a trailer on this thing.
Wow. Oh, it's put out by Mill Creek, so of course.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't see it that much, but when I was watching that, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, surely they didn't let that kid climb that. But then also it's the 50s, so they're probably like, why not? You know?
Right.
Get him up there. Yeah. He hadn't done Lassie yet.
Okay.
Lassie comes after this, according to IMDb. So, yeah.
And actually, this is one thing I like about, and the actor Tommy Reddick, his name was, I think he's really good in the part. A lot of times, kid actors can be kind of annoying or amateurish or whatever, but I liked him.
Yeah, he was, I liked him. His, I think we should talk about the reason that he's playing piano, which I found incredibly sad.
Yeah.
So his dad died. And he talks about in the very beginning that he just does what his mom wants him to make her happy.
Yep.
And I was like, God damn.
He's really a good son.
But it's also super sad. Like, this kid is so hung up on, like, doing everything to make someone else happy that he's willing to go through this piano thing and he doesn't want to do at all.
Right.
And people treat him like shit playing piano, too. They're like, no, you're off rhythm.
Right.
So it's not pleasant for him at all, but the fact that he's like, no, I need to do it because it'll make my mom happy if I do it, so I keep doing it. I'm like, Jesus, man.
No, I mean, but that's also a nice thing, isn't it?
It is, but it's sad in retrospect because you wonder how much therapy that kid's going to need when he grows up.
Well, I think things end on a happy note.
They do. He's also obsessed with, is it Zabrowski or Zablowski?
Zabludowski.
The plumber who's replacing their sink. His name is August Zabludowski.
Yeah.
Played by Peter Lynn Hayes, who I think also does a great job.
He is good.
He has that very classic Hollywood leading man, like the striking blue eyes and stuff.
Right.
Perfect white teeth. A lot of grease in his hair.
And he's playing the father figure.
He is.
And I think, especially for the 50s, I think it's a very kind of tender relationship. You know,
and
he's the father that Bart needs right now. It's the kid's name, Bart.
Yeah, and they do that well, but Bart instantly is drawn to him. Like, you know, he needs that father figure in his life, so he's immediately like, I'm going to set you with my mom. Hey. That doesn't hurt that, you know, his mom's a knockout, so...
Sure, that helps.
Speaking of Bart, funny little tidbit fact I dug up while researching this. So everybody knows The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. You know Bart's nemesis, Sideshow Bob, but do you know what his last name is? It's Terwilliker.
It is Terwilliker.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's got to be taken directly from this.
That's such a crazy deep cut reference.
It is.
It
Chris, Sideshow Bob also has kind of a Hans Conried sort of delivery there. Kelsey Grammer gives him.
But like, how many writers do you think saw this movie as a kid? Because you could easily see this playing.
I guarantee you Tim Burton saw it.
Yeah, but like...
At some point.
You know, this is one of those movies that probably played Saturday mornings or Sunday afternoons, you know, on TV that kids probably saw. And it's also safe to show. And they probably also got it cheap. So they could show it easily without having to pay a lot for it. So this probably, for a lot of people, they saw it and then just left their brains. You know, like they didn't really...
And on that note, it was also re-released in 1958 under a different title called Crazy Music. they cut out the elevator scene. That whole scene's missing. But otherwise, it's Dr. T. It was just re-released as a different title.
That's like the Asylum Productions version or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So who knows how many more people saw it then? And like you say, it was probably playing on TV a lot because it was cheap. And
Well, so Dr. T pops in real life
Yep.
towards the beginning of this film, and he's giving Bart shit because Bart's like off rhythm. Oh, this was like...
it frustrated me because he's not that bad.
No, he's not at all. But you know what this reminded me of is the scene in Whiplash where J.K. Simmons is like giving the kid shit over... He's just fucking hazing him. That's the only reason. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't seen that one yet, no.
You've at least seen the meme, right? Where it's like the...
Yeah.
It's actually a really good film, and J.K. Simmons is fucking gold in it.
Yeah.
But it's like... there's nothing wrong with the performance at all. He's playing it perfect, but he's just fucking hazing him.
Right.
And that's all Dr. Terwilliker's doing to him anyway. It's just like, I have the power over this, so...
Well, Terwilliker also makes one line that I think does make him the villain, because he says that Bart's performance reflects on him. It's about him. It's not about him. It's not about Bart learning the piano and stuff. It's all about how it represents Dr. Terwilliker.
Have you guys ever... I know, Dustin, you played bass some, but have either of you ever taken professional lessons?
I tried with guitar, but it just didn't stick with me.
I did for a very little bit, and I got very at odds with my teacher, and I quit and taught myself.
Yeah, see? So I was classically trained. I didn't stick with it, but like I learned piano early, and then I learned guitar from a teacher. And both of those instances, my teacher was not really very good at being...
What's a different skill set? You could be great at guitar, but teaching someone guitar is like a whole other...
Right. A lot of people can't teach very well.
But everything falls back on the teacher. You know, like how good you are is a reflection of how good of a teacher you are. And that's just bullshit. That's not true at all. Like some kids may just not have it. Or, you know, or they just want to go their own... They want to Fleetwood Mac it and go their own way.
Right.
You know, which is kind of what you and I did. But no, I related to that heavily.
Yeah.
My teachers were not at all like Dr. Terwilliker, but they all had that very much like, no, play with the metronome.
Right.
Which I know now, play with the metronome. But like then, I'm like, what the fuck does it matter? I'm playing the notes. But that's when, you know, Dr. Terwilliker in Bart's real life is gone pretty quick. Like he just pops in.
Scolds him, runs off.
Yeah.
And then we get one song before the fantasy elements start with Bart and his mom.
Right.
So even before it's a fantasy, it's still a musical.
Sure.
But that one's also kind of naturalistic in a way because she's singing along to his playing on the piano. So it's not like overly
It's no big production or anything.
Right,
yeah.
right.
But then when Bart falls asleep,
Well, they also, what I like about this is it is kind of like the Wizard of Oz-ish like setup.
Yeah.
We're in the real world. We meet all the characters, and then what those characters and kind of those interactions translate into the dream that he has.
Yes.
Because the plumber is there changing out the sink, and they kind of have a little conversation on the side.
Right.
Was it Bart mentions right that he's good at the piano too, I think, and
Yeah, that Zabludowski plays, yeah.
but they don't want him to like show him anything.
Right. Because he's just a plumber.
there's, if this would be such a weird like porn movie because you've got like the 5,000 things.
Hell?
Well, you got the plumber that shows up like, "Hey, I'm here to install your sink," and then you got the bad guy who's like, "No,
Don't sully this.
5,000 fingers of Doctor T."
You asshole! Dr. Seuss made this.
That's a quote for the Shout Factory.
Dr. Seuss made this.
Don't sully this.
But you're also talking about how the people in his life are in his fantasy.
Right, it's the
obviously.
same thing like in Wizard of Oz. It was like, and you were there, and you were
But
there.
you also see on the piano a picture of two old-timey gentlemen with beards, and they show
Yeah.
up in the fantasy too as the guys connected by the beards on the roller
Oh
skates.
yeah,
Yeah.
God, that's some weird fucking imagery, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so you get all this sort of setup, build up, and then he's supposed to go back to practicing the piano, but he nods off.
Right, because it's boring.
And it's really hard to explain the plot from.
Well, yeah, basically it's all about him trying to escape. He's trying to save his mom. His mom's been hypnotized by Dr. T, and he's helping. She's number 2. She's helping to run the place.
Right.
And that's pretty cool, the scene where she's like giving orders and running things, because she's wearing half a dressing gown, like evening gown,
Yeah.
and half a business suit.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool representation of that.
Especially 'cause
dichotomy
in a lot of the
housewife versus a working woman. you
Yeah,
know?
because a lot of the shots, she would turn one way or the other, and you would only see like that side of the outfit.
Yeah. That was a cool
There's a
visual
lot
touch.
of really progressive direction in this, like very pointed of things that I don't think are that you saw as much for the time period. Like this is really reaching pretty far past what you'd expect for a movie like this, as far as set design, themes, and like costume design.
Probably why it didn't land too well at the time. It was a little ahead of itself.
Yeah,
in some ways.
probably. But yeah, we have to mention the poor beanie
Yeah.
that Bart wears through the entire dream sequence.
Yeah, because Dr. T tells him to put on his official Terwilliker beanie.
Which you see, his mom is overseeing the production of these for all of the children that are going to show up.
Yeah, like when she's arguing with the guy because the fingers are like bent.
Do they look happy to you?
But yeah, this thing is so crazy.
Well, the funny thing is, it's like you would hate it because he doesn't want to be there anyways, but he still wears it through the whole film.
Well, not sure he could take it off because as much as he ran, I feel like they glued it to his head as an actor.
I mean, it was the 50s. They were probably getting him to act by cattle prod and uppers, so, you know.
Well, the one time I think he's trying to like get under a door that's closing or something, and he grabs the beanie to make sure it stays on. And
Poor
like,
kid. I mean, well, he's there to please. He's got to make sure that everything's good.
Yeah, and then he enlists the help of the plumber, Zabludowski, who's in his dream. He's installing sinks so the institute can open.
They're not a fun place either, by the way. They have cells that the kids are supposed to be assigned to.
Right.
They're supposed to just kind of hang around until he drags them out to play his like Uber piano.
Yeah, all the other kids are supposed to arrive the next day for the grand opening. So he convinces Zabludowski to go talk to his mom, try to get her away from Dr. T and all this stuff. And
One of my favorite lines of the movie is Zabludowski explaining his pay scale.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's like these really weird,
made-up currencies.
very, very Dr. Seuss currencies. And it's like this convoluted scale of like currency exchanges.
Yeah, comes out to $20.
Yeah. And he like goes through it like, well, this is so many. And like, it's almost like you're trying, and the kid finally says, well, how many dollars is that? It's like, it's like $20, kid. Like $20.
Yeah, there's a lot of great Seussian language and stuff.
I did
made up words.
And the way that line's delivered is really well, done really, really well. So,
But when he goes to check on Eloise, that's like one of my favorite scenes because he gets up there and immediately Dr. T like attacks him. Mm-hmm. But it's like this weird, like, that's when you first find out he has this hypnosis thing because he's doing like weird, like wiggly fingers and movements.
Yeah, they're both trying to put the whammy on each other and they're dancing around.
And then he starts doing it back to him, and it's this weird, like, battle dance number.
I love that scene. That's one of my favorites.
And then just out of nowhere they stop, and then he's like, "Where did you learn that?" And then he's like, "Why'd you try to put the whammy on me?"
yeah. And Hans Connery does that that almost a split type thing and comes right back up. I mean, that was kind of impressive for someone who's not like known as a dancer. It was,
it almost made me think of like a Looney Tunes bit or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Hans Connery was like a live action cartoon character, and he just digs into this role.
He dominates the whole film. Like if there's.
He has this effete theatricality that I don't know. Like he was playing camp before camp was really invented.
Right. I mean, he reminds me so much of like every villain, every over the top villain that you've seen like in cartoons or movies.
And I guarantee you've heard his voice. He's done a lot of voice work.
Yeah,
and stuff.
he worked up until the 80s or something.
He voiced Snidely Whiplash on the Dudley Do-Right cartoons. He was in a ton of TV in the 50s and 60s and stuff.
He's really one of those actors that's so good that just nobody knows about.
Oh, and you were mentioning The Simpsons earlier. Another reference to Hans Connery is from Futurama, because the robot devil, his voice was based on Hans Connery.
Interesting.
Cool.
This movie, I think if nothing else, like when we're finished with this podcast and you listen to it and you decide like, man, I don't know if I should see this movie. It's weird. Watch it for Hans Connery.
Yeah.
It's just such a great performance that I don't think should be missed.
This is his only big role in any movie.
I have some sad little factoid about that too.
Oh, yeah.
He was super excited and enthusiastic about the role, and he's quoted as saying this: "I've never had any such part before, never have since, and probably never will again. We rehearsed for 8 weeks before I was engaged to shoot for 8 weeks. An extravagance that I, as a bit player, had never known before. If it had been a success, with my prominent part in the title role, it would have changed my life forever."
Mm-hmm. It would have. He should have been a major star. He really should have been.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad. I mean, I'd love for him to be able to hear now, you know, what
celebration it has.
People are talking about. And I think film lovers and people who appreciate things past, like, well, that movie sucked. You know, like, not to be film snobby, but if you watch movies and you try to pick out performances from people, like, he's a great actor.
Yeah. Criminally underused. And he would also wind up doing another Seuss project. Halloween is Grinch Night.
I saw that in
the
his credits,
little scene sequel to How the Grinch Stole Christmas. But he's the narrator and he voices the Grinch, kind of like Boris Karloff did for the original.
Interesting.
Nice.
So
in the scheme of things, after confronting Dr. T, they kind of talk it out, and he starts to sort of upsell the situation a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. And Dr. T's plying him with like cigars and
that's a fun scene.
Yeah.
And he gets Eloise to kind of flirt with him almost in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like smooth it all over.
And it's so when Bart figures out how much he's getting paid, and he basically makes a deal with him, and he's like, well, if I can get you $30, will you not install the sinks?
Well, the other thing, too, is that Bart finds out that Dr. T plans to have him executed.
Well, that's when he goes to get him the money.
But we're skipping one of the best musical numbers, too, though. Because after the hypnotic dance thing, and when they're trying to ply Zabudowski, they do, what is it, Get Together Weather is the name of the song, I think.
Yeah.
And I like that song. That one stuck in my head.
The one that, I think my favorite song from the whole one is the one that Zabudowski shares with Bart.
The Dream Stuff one?
Yeah.
The slow one? Okay.
I like that one a lot.
It's a fine song.
That was a really good fatherly moment.
Yeah,
where,
it was, where they're bonding over.
Where it's like, and Zabudowski starts to see like, okay, maybe I could be a good dad.
Yeah.
You know, like he has this look about him that, you know, he's like, I don't want to be dad. You know, I'm not set out for this. But then he sees like how much Bart looks up to him, and he sees like, okay, maybe. And
it's also cool that he doesn't really talk down to Bart. Mm-hmm. You know, he kind of treats him almost like an equal.
Yeah.
You don't see that a lot, especially in those old movies.
I like how he leads into it, too, because Bart's kind of like pretending to fish.
Yeah.
And then he just like,
You're doing it wrong.
he doesn't question or anything. Yeah, he just like inserts himself in. He's like, well, no, we have to do it this way. And he kind of takes the invisible rod and just like keeps going with it.
He goes along with it. I'll show you what to do.
That's a really good scene. I think it's a very heartfelt scene.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when you truly see that Zabudowski is the hero.
Yeah.
That's going to be the hero or whatever. But
since we are talking about the songs, I think maybe I should confess this now.
Okay.
I did not like any of the songs.
You didn't like any of the songs? Now, I don't know if we could actually play some snippets. I think we should. If we could, I think it would be covered under fair use. And it's a 70-year-old movie. Who's going to care?
I'll see. I'll look and see who owns them.
So I think with a musical, it's kind of important. At least a few bars to give people an idea of.
We can at least link to it.
Yeah.
We can link to it and get away with it, so nobody will sue us.
Okay. You didn't like any of the songs?
No, man. They all kind of felt like, to me, generic, like, Hollywood of the time musical songs.
Nothing was catchy. Get Together Weather wasn't catchy.
None of it was really catchy. None of it was like, it all just kind of felt very samey. And I see here on the Blu-ray cover, it says, songs you'll never stop singing.
They've been in my head.
And like the next morning, I couldn't even like hum you a few
Really?
bars of the song.
What about you, Michael?
They're not like, they don't stick in my head the way others do.
Mm-hmm.
But they were catchy at the time when I was watching them, you know, like.
To me, there are three big numbers that stick in my head. And Get Together Weather is one of them.
Right.
And then the Because We're Kids one isn't bad. That's when Bart's singing about how adults don't believe in kids or trust in them and stuff like that.
That's kind of a funny one.
Yeah. But skipping ahead a little bit, there's some shenanigans, you know, a lot of running away, Bart trying to escape and all that stuff. But once Dr. T kind of catches them all at the end again, that's my favorite part because Dr. T has basically his own national anthem that he commands everyone to sing called We Are Victorious because, you know, he's captured them and he's won. So he has to have this big production about it. And they're all singing his praises and everything, and he's just standing there like his hand over his heart, looking all proud. And I thought that was a catchy song, too, We Are Victorious.
It was, I think that the problem is, like, we're trying to put these songs in comparison to other musicals that we've seen or heard a million times to where I can sing those in my head.
Sure, like all of Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, like I've heard those for my entire life. But
had this not been more successful, would we have heard some of these songs, you know, that much? Would they be more ingrained?
I think that's a big. I think that's probably what.
No,
some of it is.
I'm not saying it's on that level of Wizard of Oz. It obviously isn't.
No, but I think that maybe that comes to be like, okay, Dustin, you didn't like them now, but what if you heard them your whole childhood? Would nostalgia have put those, you know, in a different spot?
Is nostalgia enough?
It's
also. I mean, music is so subjective,
right?
You know, I didn't see this when I was a kid. I was a teenager when I first saw this.
Like there are those who love Iron Maiden and those who are wrong.
Right, right, exactly.
It's just that's how subjective it is.
Some other fun bits about how he runs this institute place. He's got like a goon squad.
Yeah, I like his goon squad.
They felt very much like Oompa Loompas almost in a way because they're kind of just marching about
right
at his command. And then there's the twins that you're talking about, which are these two old guys who have their beards tied together, and they kind of zip around on roller skates.
And they're dressed like from the late 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a fun scene, because Labadowski puts on roller skates to fight them.
See, I didn't like that part either.
You didn't like that part?
To me, it felt like, it was like, oh, look, we have these people trained on how to do...
You think I'm a grumpy old man? Look at this Grinch over here.
Labadowski even says they want to fight on roller skates. I'll fight on roller skates, you know?
Yeah.
Like
he's going to meet them on their level.
It just felt very forced, and it was like, oh, we have these people that know how to do like a roller skate stunt thing. Let's do like the roller skate stunt scene.
Oh, man. Dude, what did you think, Michael?
As far as that goes...
Yeah, that scene.
It didn't bother me because it fits into the tropes of musicals, so like I've seen enough of them that it doesn't bother me. Like I expect them to.
There's just little parts that I love, like when he grabs the garden shears, you see them both kind of jump, like oh shit, he's gonna cut our beard. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
There's an interesting thing though that is now in my head. So Jason and I both grew up watching this type of shit.
I mean, I've seen like all those like Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music.
But did you grow up truly watching them, or did you watch them later in your childhood?
No, I watched them as kids.
Okay.
He was a poser as a child.
Did you see it before it was cool, Dustin? No, it just makes me wonder, like how, like if mine and Jason's view of this is a little different because of our fondness for those type of things, you know, or if you're just wrong. Sorry.
Well, not everything is going to land.
No.
To me, it's like I just feel it in that place where it's like among those things, but it does feel lesser than all of those to me.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same charm that the classics do, which is why they're classics. I mean...
Sure, but I think there's enough charm and enough energy and individuality in this movie that it deserves to be seen.
Oh, absolutely. I think it definitely deserves to be seen. I also wonder what this movie would be like. I don't use recreational drugs, but it made me wonder if people who do would watch this movie and just
trip, yeah, the counterculture would love this movie.
You know?
If this came out in the 60s, it would have been a much bigger hit, I think. But then from the We Are Victorious song, he puts them in the dungeon, And then Dr. T has to get ready for his big
We need to talk.
opening.
We need to spend a couple minutes talking about the dungeon.
Okay, let's talk about the dungeon.
Because
The first time he goes there, it's in his attempt to just run away, and he falls down a chute.
Yes.
Kind of slides in there.
the dungeon is
the
run...
dance number is what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Well, the dungeon is what it's run by.
Uh-huh.
Very buff and beefy, oily men
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a
in
dungeon. That's
very
typical.
tight leatards.
Sure.
And lots of oil.
Yeah. Your point?
It just got... It was like a whole shift in the movie. Like, oh, okay. Well, now we've got like...
You know, I didn't think that. I think that's the youth thing.
That was another scene to me, too, that I felt like was a little dragged out and unnecessary.
The only scene I think was unnecessary was when all the boys are dancing around playing the instruments that Dr. T doesn't like. Because he says the piano's the only instrument that should exist. Piccolos.
I like
drums,
that
all
concept that he tells him that in the real world segment.
Yeah.
And then the translation into the dream is that he's got a dungeon where he's locked everyone that plays those down there.
And that was a cute idea, but it kind of went on a little bit longer than it should have. But.
There's some very Dr. Seussian instruments being played in the dungeon
Yeah.
song numbers that look like elephant snouts.
Yeah. I liked those.
That's trippy, man. I don't even know how to explain that. That's just like a real trippy...
Yeah, it's live action Seuss cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah, just know there's a dungeon scene with lots of oily dudes.
But then the other end of that is once he's captured him again, he sends him to the dungeon. They do this elevator ride.
Yes.
And that might be my favorite part musically because that song is so strange.
Oh, yeah, when they're singing about the different floors, the different levels of the dungeon and what's on them.
There's apparently supposed to be another level, but the song got cut.
Yep.
And so you don't see it.
Yeah, I have it here. They thought it was too horrifying, and they didn't want to include it in the end. They cut it out. The actual stanza is third floor dungeon, household appliances, spike beds, electric chairs, gas chambers, roasting pots, and scalping devices.
Holy shit.
That's awesome.
And they thought with the gas chamber part that was a little too insensitive.
Oh, yeah, that's... Especially with his
They
Zabludowski.
could have cut that line and replaced it with something else.
But they just sliced that little part of the song out, basically.
Yeah, it's a cool part, too. I like that.
Okay.
And then, but I love it when Dr. T's getting ready for the big grand
That's
opening.
a great-
That's a great song. I don't know how you don't like that one.
I didn't-
The
I
dressing
didn't
song,
care for
Do Me
it.
Do Duds.
But it was the most Seussy song
And
of the
Connery is great. He is so good in this part.
Yeah,
Because he's singing about all the stuff he wants to wear, and they're dressing him up, and it's so much fun.
I did enjoy that scene a lot. I thought it was very well done. Very well
He's got this
choreographed.
huge pompous costume on by the end. It's like all these medals and cords and this huge hat.
It's very well choreographed. That's a fun number.
And in the dungeon, they make an atomic device.
Yeah, I got lost at
Zabludowski
that
does.
point, man. At that point, I was like, the plot's gone for me here.
I understand that.
Everything's going crazy by the end. That's
Yeah.
the point.
I understand that it's just child logic, but I really didn't like how that panned out, especially because once he has the
It's
device,
dream logic. It's a dream.
once he has the device, it's like he shows it off in the big climactic scene, and they're like, "Oh, is that atomic? Yes, very atomic."
Yeah.
I think that's
That's
also
hilarious. It's the 50s, man.
that is playing very much into the atomic craze of the 50s.
I love
of, like-
Connery's reading of that. Is it atomic? It's so good.
So
Because
after
atomic can mean anything. You know, I mean, it was bad, but it could mean anything fantastical.
yeah, I think it's just the obsession with the atomic bomb and
Sure.
like the mystery behind it. Nobody truly knows how horrifying it is.
And they've got the 500 kids, but I don't think it's actually 5. But it's a lot. There's a lot of kids.
I have some fun notes on that. So they couldn't get 500 kids.
Right.
They had about 150, and apparently a lot of them didn't want to be there. And
Obviously.
it was this hard to coordinate scene.
There's a couple of great shots I want to talk
is
about.
the kid that's crying?
He's really crying.
He's really crying.
Dude, he is really crying. There's this
kid.
poor kid. He's either scared or whatever, but he's just sitting there crying. And you see one of the other kids try to console him. He's like patting his back. And then they show him again at the end when they're celebrating and they're all playing whatever they want.
He's still crying.
Yeah.
And he's not doing anything. He's not touching the keys. And the kid next to him grabs his hands and tries to put them on the keys. He just pulls them away. No.
But so this was said by Dr. Seuss and confirmed by some of the other creators that worked on it. One of the 150 boys vomited on the piano while they were trying to shoot the scene.
I read this.
And it made a chain reaction where all 150 were just hurling and throwing up.
God.
then here's the best part. Dr. Seuss commented that the film's reviews were very similar.
I did read that, but I read that like while I was watching the early parts of the film. So when I knew it was coming, it's hard to watch that scene knowing that all these kids just started ralphing everywhere.
That's hilarious. It's like that scene in Stand By Me. It was just contagious puking.
And that whole sequence there where they get all those kids looks chaotic.
Oh,
yeah. It just looks like pure chaos. Like they were like, we can't wrangle these kids. Just turn the camera on.
It's perfect. It's a perfect ending. It's so much fun.
It really is. I think it's
that scene too is where another of my complaints is I don't think they go far enough with some of the ideas they're trying to talk about, but there's sort of a lot of World War II metaphors and parallels in this. And that one, the way they have the kids all lined up and they're kind of processing them through and forcing the hats on their head.
Yeah.
Confiscating I got the vibe there,
stuff.
really strong.
Well, I mean, how else are you going to wrangle 150 kids?
Well, Conrad is that, Dr. T is that authoritarian, absolute.
And in that final scene, he has like tons of medals pinned to him, like war medals, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So once Bart finally thwarts Dr. T,
which we should say the atomic device they make is a little thing you can open and it like draws away all the sound.
Right, yeah.
Once he finally thwarts Dr. T, that kind of ends our dream sequence and like we get our resolution or whatever. And Bart comes back, he wakes up, and now he's back at the piano where he fell asleep before.
Mm-hmm.
But starts to like sees Mr. Zabladowski and is really starting to hammer home the hey, you should be my dad thing. Yeah. But it's what was kind of funny is that you see Bart's mom like really telling, because early in the film Zabladowski calls Terwilliker, he says he's a racketeer.
Yeah.
He says he's running a racket and he's a racketeer, and his mom's like, don't you say that about him, like you will not be teaching my child, like really chides him.
Sure.
But she had a thing for him. Because she quickly was like, you want to give me a ride? I got to go downtown. You want to take me there?
Yeah.
And she is a knockout. So it's like, Zabladowski's probably like, yeah.
She's a handsome woman.
I'll install your sink for you.
Mary Healy was the actress.
Yeah, she's good.
So, but when he's Zabladowski says too, like when he starts to realize that he could be a father figure for Bart, and he's like, how about I take you fishing next weekend?
Yeah.
And they kind of rehash it's almost like Zabladowski they do make the comment, because at one point they make a promise and they prick their fingers and give each other hepatitis C. and that's when Bart, pulls up his finger in real life and he's got a Band-Aid on it, and Zabladowski pulls up his finger and he's got a Band-Aid on it. So then you're like, oh, well, we were there together, So he realizes that maybe, he was in the dream with him, kind of a thing.
And then Zabladowski and his mom go off to shopping, and he shuts the piano and grabs his ball and glove and goes out to play.
Who was staying with this kid?
Nobody. It was the 50s.
Yeah.
The kids not to stay by himself for a couple hours.
What is he, like 10?
Yeah, I was by myself for a couple hours.
Well, he just left the house and went running down the street with his dog. Yeah, like, fuck the town, I'm going out, man.
Back in the day, even in the 80s growing up, you could do that.
It looked like the kind of suburban neighborhood where
we didn't lock our door.
Kids would just be roaming and stuff, and it's no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't lock our door either, but also I didn't live in a neighborhood. I lived
we lived in a neighborhood.
I lived on a farm,
so even at night we wouldn't lock our door.
It's still, man, like this kid just like his parents leave and he's just like fucking going out and just like leaves and no supervision. I'm like, where the fuck? Someone needs to watch this child.
That's when kids could be kids and grow up to be men and women.
Oh God,
not pampered young kids on my lawn.
Fuck.
Oh no.
Okay, so I'm getting some mixed messages here from you guys. I have a feeling one of you liked it more than the other. Is there anything else anyone wanted to say about the movie?
I've got some other fun facts.
Okay, cool.
Because I kind of leaned into that a little bit.
Lay it on me.
So
sock it to me.
The score was composed by Frederick Hollander. Mm-hmm. The lyrics were by Dr. Seuss. We set that up already. It did get an Oscar nomination for Best Scoring of a Musical Picture.
That's something.
I couldn't find what it lost to. I probably should have dug a little deeper for that, but it didn't win. The pre-recorded piano parts were uncredited, but they were done by veteran Hollywood studio session pianist Ray Turner.
Good old Ray Turner, man.
Now, I'm no pianist, but it sounded really good to me. And some of the playing was kind of
I
complex.
think Bart was actually playing
at the beginning.
I don't know about that, because
was close.
sometimes his movements didn't fit the sound at all, which is another of my little complaints.
He was pretty close, though. More than I think you normally see.
Well, I mean, it's not like it was shot on set. The audio wouldn't have been shot on set. They would have been.
There was a notable desync between the audio and his movements.
Oh my god!
And
Why are you being so pedantic today? What is this?
I felt that too in the big dance number in the dungeon. A lot of those people were kind of just like flailing with their instruments.
Well, it's a giant elephant snout. How else do you play an elephant
even the people
snout?
with the actual real instruments?
Oh.
It was out of sync to the
How
music.
many Italian films have you watched where nothing syncs up, even the Foley work?
You know what I think this
But
is?
this isn't a low budget Italian flick.
I think comparatively it was relatively low budget.
I
at the
think
time.
you made Dustin mad yesterday
What did I do?
over your hatred of Jason Goes to Hell.
This is his vengeance.
And I think he maybe liked the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
He'd rather dig
But
at me a
you
little bit.
shit all over one of his favorite Friday the 13th movies.
Oh god, that's another conversation.
If that
And-
can make you feel better, go with that, I guess. But
And Dustin
no,
showed up today. He's like, you know what? Fuck the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. I don't care if I liked it or not. I'm tanking
T
this
stands
movie.
for turd.
we will we'll talk about my feelings in a minute, but some more things. So that preview version you talked about that they did a test audience with, it was received very poorly, and the studio flipped out. They did all kinds of cuts and reshoots. Originally, there were 20 musical numbers in all that were filmed. 9 were pulled out.
Now, it's probably a good idea cutting some of that, because I don't think this movie needs to be any longer. I will say that. 90 minutes is a good
Imagine
runtime.
that.
I do
Jason said he doesn't think something needs to be longer.
I do think
too long.
it needed another song or two
lot
to
of
kind
movies
of
are.
balance it out.
I agree with that.
Like you said, that footage is lost. They've never been able to find any of the missing
I'd
footage.
love to see that footage.
At the Hollywood premiere, a lot of patrons walked out after 15 minutes. It had terrible box office reception. It pretty much got widespread negative reviews from the critics. Of course, we talked about, in more modern times now, it's kind of been rediscovered and reanalyzed by people. Talking about the film, Dr. Seuss said it was a debaculous fiasco.
Yeah, that's a great term.
And he had it omitted from his official biography.
That's
for
harsh.
Credits.
That's harsh.
In the wake of the film, when he was questioned whether he would work on another movie, he said, "Hollywood is not suited for me, and I am not suited for it."
Well, no, that's a fair statement.
And it's very unfair, though, because I think they did a good job. I think Seuss did good with the screenwriting and the song lyrics.
It's
and
very
stuff.
Dr. Seuss. It's just not the
If
Dr.
this had
Seuss
just
that Hollywood wanted.
If this had just contacted with audiences,
I think a lot of it is
he would have had more live action.
it is Dr. Seuss, but it's filtered through the Hollywood lens.
Oh, that's a very good
And
statement.
in a way
yeah.
that kind of blunts a lot of the magic of his creativity and the worlds that he creates.
Right. In Dr. Seuss books, there's no one filtering that. Just let him be Dr. Seuss. Let him be wild and crazy. But we see that in almost every film we watch now. It's like, okay, well, we need to make a movie that's going to make money. So we're going to filter it through whatever we think is going to make money at the time.
There's still some interesting. Well, it doesn't. Continue.
So, two final facts. It was one of the earliest films to be released in stereo, and that was done as part of a ploy by people in the industry to get TV viewers back into the theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a struggle at the time in the early 50s.
Maybe kind of like now.
They used a 98-piece orchestra to do the score, and it was one of the largest ever assembled on a Columbia soundstage for the time.
Cool.
And then the last thing, when you talked about that earlier draft of the film, it had some darker themes, which was one of the problems the studio had. And there's a few tidbits that people still know, like elements that were cut out. Dr. T originally had a magic saber that he would use to behead his henchmen
Holy crap.
whenever they were incompetent or they would fail to capture Bart. And once decapitated, they would rise again as headless zombies. And it was this comical thing where they would still try to serve him, but they would stumble about.
Oh my god, it's Reanimator.
Yeah.
30 years early.
Eloise's cage that she's trapped in for parts of the film, originally it was supposed to be suspended above Dr. T's bed for him to stare at her and watch her.
Oh, you mean her, what was it, Lock Me Tight?
Yeah, Lock Me Tight. And there was extra scenes where she would recite these little rhymes that was like her doting on him and saying how loyal and loving she was after he had hypnotized her.
Whoa.
And the finale was supposed to have a song where Bart would sing, and it was him encouraging the two twins with the beard to turn on Dr. T and strangle him.
Holy shit. With their beard?
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
Death by beard.
But when they dropped that, I guess they shunted it to the thing where
cuts their beard.
Zabludowski defeats them.
There is one thing we didn't talk about that was kind of fun. It's one of these things that's like, they will never allow that to happen now because it's so uncontrollable. But when they break Bart's mom out of her Lock Me Tight cage, Zabludowski uses this prop flamethrower.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the flame that's coming off of that son of a bitch is really way too big for a prop that anyone should be using. And he's actually burning through this prop.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, that looks really dangerous.
damn, yeah.
You should have that kid take a couple steps back. But it looks like it.
I'm sure it was fine. I'm sure there was lots of asbestos on the set.
Oh, yeah. Sure. But like this flame shoots out, and I was like, holy shit. That's what. And then he like, the actor's like kicking it to try to make it fall. Cause yeah, it was pretty intense. And I was like, oh shit, they'll never let somebody do that now.
That's great. Yeah.
And then to close this out, I have a question I wanted to pose to you guys about this film. Because I've really been like going back and forth on this since I watched it. The scene when Bart and Zabludowski kind of team up and decide they're finally going to, deal with everything. And they have this conversation about like, oh, you should be my dad. You should marry my mom. Da-da-da-da.
Sure.
They kind of just decide that between them. And I know this is the child logic of this dream world. But is that weird? It felt weird to me. Like, it seems like they just decide all of this for his mother, and then it's just expected that she goes along with it.
I didn't take it that way because it is like it's from the point of view of a child. It's dream logic, and I'm sure children are like, "Hey, yeah, my mom needs a husband. I'd like a dad. I like you. We should hook up." I mean, to me, it makes sense.
It felt weird to me because it was like the two extremes where she can be hypnotized by Dr. T and like hopelessly devoted to him, or this other dude and her son decide that she's going to marry him.
But then you get back in real life, and it's not like she has agency. I mean, it's obvious, like you said, Michael, that she's a little bit into him. I mean, he's a nice guy, not bad looking, teeth. Right? He drives like an old army Jeep. That's pretty cool. But it's not like they're being forced on each other. It's at the end. It's like a indication that hey, maybe they're interested and they'll get together.
I see what you're saying, though, Dustin, because I think it's easy. I think this is like one of the things when you evaluate history.
And it is the 50s. I understand that.
When you evaluate history, you have to be careful about what lenses you're looking through to evaluate it. And
I don't see what that has to do with any of Dr. Seuss's works, Michael.
I think it's very easy to see that, though, like especially because of the time frame and the climate that we're in. So I think it's very easy to see that. But I do think you have to look at this film through the lens of the kid.
Right. And that's the way a kid would think.
And if you try to impose more adult ideas on this film, I think you can see a whole lot of shit that you probably shouldn't see.
It's not like Zabludowski's like, hey, you dame, you're going to be my wife. You have nothing to say about it. I think it's a naturally forming relationship.
What I actually like is how sheepish Zabludowski became when he realized, like, oh shit, she might be into me.
Yeah, right.
And he immediately is like, yes, ma'am. Yeah, of course I'll drive you.
All shucks.
Like, gorge. He really became more like, sit down, kid. I gotta go do some stuff here.
But no, I don't think that's an issue, personally. Again, I kind of wish we had a female presence on this podcast to speak on that end.
We should.
What the hell do we know? But
Tiffany didn't have a lot to offer on this one. She
bailed by that time, didn't she?
I'm out.
She was not a fan.
Piper asked me, she's like, when I was telling her about the movie, she's like, would I like this? I was like, I don't know.
I mean, also, Dustin, don't you think that sometimes women want to be told what to do and things?
Oh, okay. This has been Genre Exposure. We won't be back again for another episode.
Join us next week as we try out our new host.
Yeah.
Jason will no longer be joining us.
That was, of course, a jest.
Yeah. Okay, we should probably...
Final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts. Before Jason fucks us royally anymore.
Oh, my God.
Jason, it was your pick. Where are you at on it?
Well, obviously, it's my pick, so I enjoyed it. I like it.
It's not always the case.
So, yeah, sometimes upon reevaluation, you're like, oh, what was I thinking?
Or it's a blind watch or something like that.
No, I still like it a lot. I appreciate it. I think I really appreciate its kind of message of nonconformity. And I think that might be one of the reasons why it didn't hit at the time.
Sure, that's fair.
Which
50s were all about conformity.
Yeah, conform. And it's fun. I mean, it's fun. If you like old Hollywood, if you like musicals, if you like campy performances...
I feel like dungeons with a lot of oily dudes in it.
You ever been to a Turkish prison?
Immediately was in my mind when he walks into that, and I'm like, ever been to a Turkish prison, Bart? Ever seen a grown man naked?
But I think it's a lot of fun. It's very well. There's going to be people who listen to us who are all about the horror and the hardcore and the gore and stuff, which, dude, I love. I'm all about that. But
well, that's part of our goal is to explore and branch out.
There's other genres, there's other things to watch. There's other things, that need to be rediscovered and celebrated and seen more. And this is one of those movies. So if I were to give a rating to it, I would give it 3.5. Because I don't think it's a lost masterpiece by any means. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's a very fun movie. It's a unique movie. You're not going to see something else like it from the 50s, I guarantee you. Check it out.
Cool. I guess I'll go next because I'm sort of the other end of the spectrum, and then I think Michael maybe filters in the middle, but we'll see. You're sort of the wild card on this. So, Jason Goes to Hell aside, because that had no bearing on this. I was pretty settled the second the credits rolled. I did not like this movie at all.
Wow.
I respect it. I think it has some cool ideas. It's awesome to see Dr. Seuss in film format. Mm-hmm. I wish there was more of that. It really does seem like kind of the Hollywood system sort of cut down his ideas and his vision somewhat. It's regrettable that he never tried again.
Yeah.
So I think with the right sort of people in the mix working on it, he could have made something amazing theatrically. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it seemed like a lot of other musicals. It made me think of The Wizard of Oz. It made me think of Willy Wonka a little bit, especially with like the goons running around in the Institute.
Well, Willy Wonka came after this, but
it's in the scheme of like things you would compare it to.
All right, I got you. I see what you're saying.
I'm not saying that it's ripping off those. I'm saying just like the feeling. It feels like
it ripped it off before it happened.
It feels like these other films, and I think those other films all do greater things in a way that when I watched this, I was kind of just like meh.
Oh,
I don't know
quick
about
aside, I kind of hate Willy Wonka. Aside from Gene Wilder's performance, I do not like that movie.
So we'll be back with our new host next time.
But please continue.
And yeah, like as the music, like it all just kind of felt like typical 50s big Hollywood. None of them really stood out to me. None of them were very catchy. I really can't even like hum a bar for you right now if I wanted to try. And I think of so many other things, even when we talk about like big Hollywood productions, something like one I love Chicago, right? And so it takes this like jazz theme to all its songs, but then even then each song kind of has its own identity that sits within the frame of the film where they build on everything, but also they kind of sound unique to one another, even if they are still playing in the same like smaller genre area of music. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, here it just felt all very samey, all very ran together. And I couldn't jive with that at all.
Okay.
So I appreciate it. I think if you love Dr. Seuss at all, you should see it just for that reason alone. That's sort of the curious, interesting aspect about it to me. That and the history and the production, how it's kind of like been cut down from what it could have been, forgotten, and now it's come back into the limelight a little bit. I'm sure for a lot of people like you, Jason, it will work great for them, and they'll love it, and they'll really get lost in sort of the like phantasmagoric Caligari world that's created there.
Well, I'm confident that most of our listeners have great taste and they will enjoy it.
But representing the other side of the spectrum, did not care for it at all. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, sadly, other than that prescribed little lane of like, if you like Dr. Seuss a ton, 1 star. Sorry.
Whoa. Oh,
Jason's so torn
that
up.
was me.
He's just,
That was me hanging myself.
Well, now we really have to get a new host.
all right, Michael, bring us home.
I actually really enjoyed it.
Yay! That's it. I'm done. Bye, everybody.
If I put this against like other musicals that I grew up on, no. Like I can't say like if you've never watched Wizard of Oz and you have to choose between Wizard of Oz and the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Obviously,
There's an
right,
obvious
right,
answer to that.
right.
But I found myself really kind of getting lost in the whimsy of it. Mm-hmm. And but I'm such a sucker for old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that might have clouded it a little bit because anything old Hollywood I kind of get drawn into. Probably
Right.
one of the reasons I liked Under the Silver Lake so much.
I was about to say that because this is partially Dustin's fault.
What?
Because the whole old Hollywood stuff from Under the Silver Lake made me think of this movie.
Interesting.
But you didn't like Under the Silver Lake.
No, I didn't, but I like old Hollywood. I like what that movie made me think of.
So
sorry, continue.
I'm going to land at 3.
Okay.
On 3 stars on this one.
That's fair. That's
because I would tell somebody, like, if you're a fan of musicals, and you've not seen this, I think this is an easy one to put out there to say, like, this is an offbeat musical that you can kind of watch and get some trippy things out of. Also, performances for me. Like, I have been known to like shitty movies just for great performances. And the performances in this are really great. Mm-hmm. Like,
I will give them that. Like, everyone that's involved sort of in the production, they're all...
they're giving it.
They're in it.
Yeah.
They're in it. And I really appreciate that. Because this, if somebody weren't in this, like, all in, you'd see it. Mm-hmm. But somehow they managed to get everybody to be on board with this crazy, outlandish idea.
Other than the kids, but they have a very minor
one or
role.
two of the children. Yes.
What is the old adage, like, don't work with kids and don't work with animals?
Yeah.
And I thought of that when I was watching all the kids.
Don't work with 150 kids.
I was like, Jesus, oh my God.
You know, someone was off to the side of the stage and they're just like, why did we do this? Why did we decide
Well,
this?
I thought in my head, like when I read the thing about the kid puking and then starting a chain reaction, some poor like production assistant's like,
yeah, someone had to clean that up.
God damn it.
And piano keys? Oh, you're not getting that out.
Too late to quit. Like, will my career be shot if I just walk off set today? So no, I'll land at a solid 3.
Nice.
I think I could recommend it to people, a certain audience. I think I could recommend it to.
I think anyone listening to this knows who they are, who would enjoy this.
Yeah, if you saw that we're doing a musical and you just were like, oh, I'm not listening to that one today.
Right.
You know, this is definitely not for you.
Obviously not.
But
if you've made it this far, I think check it out. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did.
Plus, it's streaming for free on several sources.
We'll link to that.
We'll link to that in the show notes.
Because the one I watched it on is so fucking weird. I don't even remember what the title of the channel was that I watched it on. But
I know it's on Crackle. That was okay.
Yeah, but the Blu-ray was only $10 on Amazon. So,
well, there's that.
So if you collect musicals, that's an easy grab.
Sure.
Okay,
Cool.
Well, I'm a little disheartened, but not terribly surprised.
It's okay.
It's okay to be wrong. Right?
So
I could be the wrong one.
it's your
think
pick
you are.
next, right?
It is my pick next. And in the scheme of our schedule, I think this episode's going to fall into October.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
So this is the first time we should
The holy month.
maybe talk about, yes, the holy month that we all worship. We love October. We love Halloween. We love horror films. We're all about that. I think the plan is that we're going to try to have an episode every week in October.
Every week of a horror film in October.
All horror related. So I took that into consideration. I also promised the next thing I would bring would be very trashy.
Yeah.
So I had to keep that into consideration
I've
too.
been waiting for this.
So in the scheme of that, we'll probably have more announcements about what we're going to do. We'll have 2 normal episodes in October. We'll have 2 extras. We'll find something fun to do for those. Maybe it's a good time for that trivia showdown.
Yeah, let's do it.
But when we did The Nightingale recently, it got me thinking about the fact that we haven't done a lot of female directors. And that's not for any other reason than just kind of in that we, haphazardly pick these kind of just on a whim.
And women have been terribly underrepresented as directors in history of film.
But that's been on my mind too. And I have the perfect trio of all these things, that it's horror-related, woman director, and it's pretty trashy.
Which Roger Corman movie is this?
Interesting. So we're going to be watching 1987's Blood Diner.
Yes!
Directed by...
Yes!
Oh, God.
Everyone watched this movie without me.
This movie fucking rules.
Yes, directed by
Spoiler.
Jackie Kong.
Everyone watched this movie without me, and I was so bummed because...
Well, where the hell were you?
Probably having a baby, you asshole.
No, this was a long time ago I saw this.
Yeah,
you may have been in Ohio then.
I was in Ohio.
It's got a blue from the Vestron line.
Nice.
So,
Do you have it?
of course. I love this movie.
Excellent.
I'm excited. I'm so excited.
I've been wanting to rewatch it, so this is a great excuse.
It's crazy, it's bonkers, it's super trashy, it's over the top, gory. It's all the things if you love horror films, it's got it all there.
Yep.
So,
Oh man,
It's so not PC.
no, not at all.
I'm so excited for this. Our friend of the show, Adam, was wearing a Blood Diner shirt when I saw him a couple weeks ago.
yeah.
So cool. Awesome.
Nice.
We'll
Looking
dig
forward
into
to
that
it,
next
man.
time.
Yeah.
As always, and finally, guys, thank you so much. Some of you have started reaching out to us, even with just little comments on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even just the littlest thing. Just say like, hey, I dug this episode, or you guys suck.
Yeah, let us know how wrong Dustin is about this movie after you watch it.
We really appreciate that. It really
Yes.
makes our day, and we love interacting with you guys. So please continue to do that. All your favorite social media channels. And
Aye, aye. Facebook, Instagram, Twitters, the emails.
MySpace.
that's still there, so we don't have a MySpace presence.
Don't go looking there.
Until next time, guys, and I'm so excited for next time now.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys then. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.